Welcome back. Now let's implement the login feature of our application, and this is going to be lot of work. So let's just start. Now before starting that, let's take a look at our demo application. So here this is the beginning. See that here we don't have any user logged in. We cannot see anything, and then we need to give an input username and the username that we computed before, remember, and then the pin. And so if the pin and the username is correct, then we get logged in. So that's all going to happen whether we click on this button or the enter key on keyboard. And so after giving all those, then all of this look like this. And so here all these values are calculator. So that is the main thing that we do in this lecture. So if the someone is going to log in, then their values are going to be displayed. So that is the main thing. And so now let's take a look at the HTML form. So here we see that we have a form element here, and this form has a button. So this button is the login button, so that we will attach the add event listener method. And so then as for the inputs, the user name is gonna come from this one. So with this class, login user dash dash input, and the pin is coming from this one. And as always, I already have all of this here selected. So let's see that here. So that is here this button login. And also we have here input login username and input login pin. Now let's create these event handlers. So let's write here event handler and then write button login dot add event listener. Then give click. And then always we have our callback function. And now let's just log this into console right here, console.login. And now let's see here, just click on this. And now did you see what happened here means? Take a close look down here what happens when we click this. So for a flash there you saw the login and then the page also reloaded. So that's because this is the button in a form element. So in the HTML the default behavior when we click on the submit button is for the page to reload. So need to stop that. For that we need to actually give the function here. So event parameter. So you should already know how this callback function gets access. So here I am giving it. And now here the event object, remember that give here I am giving e dot. So when we call a method, I am giving the prevent default. So the method prevent default. This will then prevent this form from submitting. So let me write that prevent form from submitting. Now let's do that again. See here we have the login. Now we fixed the problem. Now the another thing that great about the forms is that whenever we have one of these fields here inputted and when we hit the enter like this, so then that we will actually trigger here. So see that the login is now 2 times. So here when we click on this username and the pin, and both of these things will trigger a click event. So we see that when we click here or enter button, we see that we get more or more clicks events. So that's why we get this login logged into the console. Now let's do the actual work. So to log the user actually in, we need to find the account from the accounts array. And that's also with the username and the user inputted. So that's where our find method comes into play again. So now let's write that. Let's get rid of this. Now let's write that accounts dot using find method and then here account use arrow function account dot owner that is strictly equal input. So remember that we have this value it input login username. So write that one. So input login username that is this element here. And then from there we need to take the value property. So let's write here dot value. So this is also we already seen in guess my number game. And so now let's actually save this into a variable. So now this variable needs to be defined outside of the function. So and that's because we will need this function about the current account also later in other functions also. So it's good thing to have a big important information outside of the function so that we can then remember it. So for that, so for other actions in our application, for example, when we transfer money here, we need to know from which account that money should actually go. And so for that, we need the current account also. And for let's write let current account. So we are just defining this one. So for that, we used the let, and then here we assign this value. So let's write here current account equal, and then now log this to console current account. Now let's reload. Click on here. See, we have the undefined. So we have a problem there. The problem is, as I see right away, here we are looking for the owner, but we need to look for the username. So the owner, here we use the username property in these properties. Now let's try again. JS and then the pin 1111. See here we get the object which has the owner details. So that we got the user that is trying to log in. And now all we need to do is that we actually log the user is in to check if the pin is correct. So pin here is like a password, but something that we usually like an ATM. So I decided to just go with that here because I think this also looks like a ATM mission here. So let's do that test. So for that, let's write here if current account dot pin strictly equal input login pin, and then we need to take the value. So for that, give dot value, and finally we also need to convert this value to number. So for that, let's give here number. This value is always be a string, and so here before we do anything, let's log this to console.log login. Now let's just log in and then give the pin. So here we have the details, owner details, and then also login one time. So and now here if we only input JS, then we simply get the object itself, but without being logged in because the pin is correct. Now let's just try with some other user. See here we got an error. So that error is cannot read property pin of undefined. So the reason for this is the object here. So now is undefined. So because no account could be found for this username. So the find method is so this one here will return undefined if no element matches this one. So that's something that we haven't seen before. So that's why I'm showing this to you. But anyway, how should we solve this? The first thing that might come into this is to simply check if the current account exists like this. So for that, let's write here current account. And so this would fix the problem, but we can do better because we already learned about something optional chaining. Remember that. And now we don't need this. So we can do this, and then this pin property will only be read in case that the current account here actually exists. And so remember that. So this is a lot easier and a lot more elegant. Now let's try that. Give here. And so now we can do this with the pin property. Give here. And then this pin property will only be read in case so that the current account here actually exists. And remember that, so this is a lot easier and a lot more elegant. So now let's try that again. Give here. Now let's see what happened. See here we have that undefined. Now this account does not exist. So, but that's of course not a problem. But now in case that the account does not exist and that the PIN is correct, what should we do? So let's take a look at our flowchart. So this is the part that we already checked. And if we have the current credentials, so if yes, then we should display the UI and the welcome message. And let's write that here in our script. So here I am writing that in comments first. Display UI and message. And here the next thing is that we should display and calculate the balance. And also the same with the summary. And also the same with the movements. So this part here we are leaving the next section. And so now here we are having the display balance, summary and movements. So let's write that display movements, display balance, display summary. Now let's start with the message and that is this one. Let me inspect here. So inspect. So this is login to get started. That is this paragraph and class welcome. So we already selected the welcome. So it is a label. So probably it's a label welcome. So now let's write in message that label welcome dot we have the text content property, text content, and then here we are going to write welcome back, and then here the owner of the current account. So let's write the that is here current account dot owner. So with this we will get the only first word, and then after that we need to split method giving the space. And so I said already we use this one all the time, and then from the resulting array. So we simply take the first element, that is 0th element. So we are done with this. This will display the message. And so now for the UI, remember how in the beginning we set the opacity here, that is from 0 basically back to 100, which is the default. So usually the opacity here is at 0. So now when we log in the user, we actually set this opacity to 100. Now as we save this, we get this will disappear. See this? And so now what we will do is the container app. So container app is the element that we selected previously. So that is this one container app. And so here we used the dot app, that is this one. So let's write the container app. So with this element we will manipulate the style, right? Style dot opacity. So here the opacity should be 1, as opacity is a value between 0 and 1 in CSS. But in this case it's really just one style. So now let's test this one out for now. Now let's give here JS and then pin. Now see here we have that here the welcome back message and also the owner name. And let's just test for another one in JD. The pin is 222. See here we have the name changed to Jessica. And now you see that all these balances and these movements here, they are all still hard coded. That are all these are from this calculating display summary, this one and this balance also, and also these display movements. So now what we want to do is that, but actually we have to do something inside of the login function. So for that we need to remove all these because we need to call these functions right in the beginning. So that is whenever our script is loaded, and so we need to calculate and display the balance and the movements and also the summary as soon as we actually get the data that we want to display. So now let's remove all of these. Display movements also. So this display summary. So let's write here in these moments, display moments. So here it expects a moment argument. So further, let's write current account moments. And so as we hover this function name, we see that we have here, we can immediately see what we have need. So that is this display moments. And also here we see moments. These moments are passed into a function. And now then write the same for the balance also. So that is calculating display balance, current account moments. And also let's again hover this part. We see that we have here the account. So that is the data stored in the current account dot moments. And now the last one is the summary. Let's write here calculating display summary. And once again we need these moments. Current account moments. Now let's reload. Give the name, choose the pin. See here we have the details of the owner, and now let's take as a different owner. And also here you see that the balance and also these deposits and withdrawals. All we have here the post owner Jonas. That is all these details. And now let's take another one. And so now we see that the balance details are changed and also these withdrawals and deposits also. See here we have all these movements changed. So that is here these 5,000, 3,400, all these deposits and withdrawals. What we have here in this Jessica's account. So all these are updated. So we are getting all of these details, data details, and that is really from the account object itself. So we are getting all of these values, and so this data here dynamically really from the account object itself. So we have all of her movements. We calculated all of these statistics and also these ones, and also this balance. And also now let's check for this Stephen Thomas Williams, STW, and the pin. See here, all these details are updated to Stephen once. And so the current balance of this Stephen is only 10 euros. And now finally, let's try with the Sarah. So here also all of these details are updated and all these are deposits only. And here the current balance also updated. So from this we say that this is now really works depending on the user's data. And so now let's go back here. And now what we want to do next is, so as we log in, also get rid of this data here. So basically emptying these two fields, and also we log in like this. So I didn't want this field here to lose its focus. So now let's do that. Here before this one, here input fields. And we already know that the fields are input login username. So let's write that. So here we want to set this username to empty string. So for that let's write give here empty string. And then also input login pin. So simply write the here input login pin that is equal. And because the assignment operator works from right to left, so it will start here assigning equal to the field here, and then this here become the empty string. So then after that, the empty string also assigning to this one. So we are missing the dot value. Let's write here dot value, and also here also dot value. So now let's check reload. See that here give chase, then the pin. See here we have like this, it removed the details, but here still has the focus. That means that we can see the cursor there blinking. So further, let's write here input login pin. And now here we use the blur method. So this will make it so that this field loses its focus. So this field loses its focus. Let's see again. Now you see that it is looking good. And also now we need to come back to this function here, that is this summary. So here as we see that this summary function, that is this one, calculating display summary. So this function we calculated the interest using the 1.2. So for all of the accounts, the interest rate is now calculated using the 1.2 interest rate. But however, as we take a look at these accounts, we have the different interest rates. That is here the first one 1.2 and the next one 1.5. And also the third one 0.7 and the fourth one 1. So we need to use these dynamically using these interest rates depending on the current user. So for that we need to modify this function. So we have to modify this function, and so in order to get access to the data, so that to the interest rate, we now need more than just the moments. Instead of the moments, we want now the entire account, because then we take the moments from the account and also the interest rate. So again, we will now change this function and pass the entire account and not just the moments array. And so then from there, we will be able to take these moments that we need to calculate all these three statistics and then also the interest rate that we have here. So let's change here account. So we need to take the moments from this account. Let's give a short form. So for that, let's write account.moments and then here also and also in this interest. And so now here, instead of this 1.2 fixed rate, we take account dot interest rate. So that means that this account dot interest rate. And so now here in this callback function, we need the current account. And now let's see the result. I'm giving the details of Steven. Then here the pin reload. And so now see that this is the correct interest of this Steven's account. Now let's check for Jessica. See that here the Jessica's interest rate that is displayed. So with this, based on the current owner or current user, the details are changing like this. And so with this, we have implemented all of the tasks that we had in our flowchart for this functionality. And in practice, what this means is that for the first time, we made all of the data that we see here in our application dynamic. So depending on which user is actually logging in. So let's see the change again. Let's try a wrong pin. Let's give here the wrong pin. We see that it hides the user interface and display an error message. So this is just a simple learning application. We don't need the mess with all of that. What matters is only the correct version for now, and so with the correct pin now, as you saw. And now just to recap clearly, the most important part of this here is this one, this accounts.find, and knowing that this is the correct method for the job. So maybe analyze this line here one more time and then see what happens, and also this nice usage of optional chaining. So we are done with this, and in the next lecture we see the transferring. And so this is all about the session. See you in the next lecture. Thank you.